Hello, Ms Chanelle here. Um, I'm running just a tad bit late. I apologize. I'm running just a tad bit late. But I am here and I'm just setting up. I just wanted to come on because I know I was already late for this. I'm so sorry. But guys, welcome. I'm Ms Chanelle, language success coach. I'm here with a lot of here this time. And what we're going to look at is information for students who are doing paper 3 for the CSEC English A exam. All right, so that's a crazy paper. All right, and I would say it's a crazy paper because listen, if you've seen that paper, you probably know why I sound a bit speechless, right? If you're not familiar with it, it's actually a paper with just 3 questions. It's about, I think it's 2 hours that you're given for the paper. Unfortunately, there are some other dimensions of the paper that you should be aware of if you've never seen this paper before, or if you've sat it already and were totally confused by this particular paper. So I know I know this session is going to help you because I have successfully gotten private candidates through this particular paper and they have had a phenomenal time. Not phenomenal meaning that, oh my gosh, let's do it again, but phenomenal meaning that they didn't even have to be in survival mode, that they were in thrive mode as far as this paper went. Okay, so first thing you got to know is that this paper is a 3-question paper and each question is divided into parts except the last question, and preceding these questions would be 3 texts. Hopefully you know what I'm saying. TEXTS, text. So what it means is that you actually have 3 sources of information. If you're familiar with the SBA, remember paper 3 actually mimics the SBA. There are 3 sources of information, and these sources of information are all centered around a single theme. So if you're looking at the 2020 paper, I just reviewed this paper, and the 2021 paper with one of my students just last night. The 2020 paper is about skin bleaching, and to a certain degree you can say it's about persons who have issues with their skin color if they are of darker skin tones, right? They're very self-conscious about it, they don't like it, and that's what it's about, right? So you've got this overarching theme, and then each text presents a particular perspective. Now you have to understand this part for the rest of the question, for the actual questions to then make sense. You have to know that when you're looking at these 3 separate texts, they are linked together by a common theme. So for example, I could be just talking about the environment, preservation of the environment, right? And we may have 3 perspectives about preserving the environment. There's a particular year that talks about the environment. It's is it? Yes, 2021. 2021 is the most recent paper I have, 2021 January. Unfortunately, this type of paper 3s seem to be very hard to get. So I only got this 2021, this Jan 2021 paper, Jan 2024, right? But this is about preservation of the environment, and you have 3 texts in this one. Now I'm saying the word text, but they are giving you more or less 3 sources, and these sources do not have to be written sources. So what you're going to get is article. It seems that the trend for this paper is to start with an article. I'm saying seems because, like I said, the most recent one I have is 2021 Jan. All right, but so far, a student of mine wrote Jan 2024, and I believe it's still on trend. Article comes first, article from a newspaper. After that, the other two sources can be any and everything. So a song, in 2021, it's a song and a speech, right? In 2020, it's a cartoon and a poem. Poem? No. Diary entries. You can get a poem as well. All right, so it can be any of these things that you're going to get for this particular paper. Now, let's keep the format that it comes in aside. Give me a second. Right, great. So let me keep the format that they come in aside, right? Let's forget that temporarily. What you need to remember is that one overall arcing theme that you need to know, not because you're going to ask you a question about it, but because if you don't get this is what you're talking about, you might be confused for the actual text or source materials. Let me say source materials because I've got a tight tongue and the word text is killing me, right? So you then, when you start the paper, what I recommend is that you go through each of the source materials, the three sources that it gave you, and try to understand what's the perspective in each one. Very important. Now, when you understand the perspective in each one, you are already preparing yourself for the very first question. So I can go now to the actual questions because so far each question remains the same. Now, to keep you focused for these questions, I have come up with a name for each for each question. This is not from CXE. This is something I came up with myself, and I normally use it with my students, my learners, so that they know how to focus for this question. Question 1 is a purpose question. They want to know about the purpose of the documents themselves and how they function. Question 2 is a presentation question. That is centered on preparing an oral presentation and details of oral presentation. The third question, I call that a personal question because it's like a personal reflection and you have some leeway in terms of creativity. However, if you're not a very creative person, I have a recommendation for you. So if we go back to question 1, and that's your purpose question, it's again 3 parts, part A, part B, part C. And as I said, if you've already figured out what the main idea of each of those sources or texts are, that's literally the first question. This with 6 marks. Write the main idea or issue presented in each of the 3 texts. Now, you're going to have to write this in a full sentence. You're not going to put save the environment. That will not get you marks. I assume it's not going to get you marks. You're not going to put the man doesn't like skin bleaching. That skin bleaching one, if you know it, 2020, that does not apply to any text. You're going to have to give me a full and complete sentence. If you're trying to understand what I mean by that, think full and complete sentence like you would for summary. If you're confused by that because you never wrote full and complete sentences for the 5 main points for summary, let me try to give you an example. So if I go to 2020 with skin bleaching, which has been out for a while, and I'm doing the third text, which is Diary of a Dark-Skinned Girl, I could say the main idea of this text is that listen, I love this text so much. It takes me a while to appreciate it and then get into what this is about, right? Because this one I think is a bit challenging, right? That's why I'm doing this one. I can say that this text raises the issue that I think I change my answer every time with this. Persons with dark skin may suffer. Persons with negative emotions about their dark skin may suffer from depression, but this does not mean that their beauty is centered around their skin color. Actually, more the last part. The beauty of a person is not centered around the color of their skin, but has to do with their self-acceptance of their own self-acceptance. All right, that was much better. Okay, sorry about the crazy wording before, but that's more of what you want for a main idea. Very, very important. And guys, I'm going into some of these things because again, I've corrected work from my own students. Now, I'm not correcting officially with CXC, all right? And honestly, there isn't a rubric that I have found for this section, but my students who listen to what I have said, okay, keep on. My students who have listened to my advice and followed it, they have done well in this paper. They've not had to go back and repeat, right? Because again, I have worked with repeaters. I've worked with a person I'm working with right now for May June. He's a repeater. He has not been in the system for decades, and he really wants to pass CSEC English, but he's been doing it on his own, and he realized with me how many things he was leaving out. So this is one of the things that we're going to work on to improve. And you know, he's been paying attention, so we're going to do it. I did have a previous student who repeated English about 3-4 times, but didn't want to write, didn't want to practice, felt a lot self-conscious. You guys know what I mean. Writing can feel very self-conscious, especially if you've had to repeat English, right? I understand that. But she didn't want to take my advice, and what happened is I think she did fail the exam with me as well. All right, so again, I'm giving you actual real life examples. Yeah, so we've got text 1, text 2, text 3. You put in your main ideas. That's section A. Now we're going to section B. Now section B, based on these current instructions, I'm saying based on current instructions because the last paper I have is from 2021, and CSEC love to change instructions slightly. So please read your instructions very carefully. I'm kind of going off of old information because this is what I have, okay? Now, what you have to do for section B is you're going to choose any one of the 3 texts or sources that they gave you. Whatever they gave you, you're going to pick one. And you're going to look at the format the text is in. So what if it's an article, what if it's a song, poem, cartoon, diary entries. You're going to look at all of those, right? And you're going to say whether that format works to communicate the idea or issue. So again, let's go back to 2020 and skin bleaching. I do think I'm using this one because this one has been out since like 2020. So I know this one has been circulating, so I'm assuming most of you actually still have this one. Let's say we're looking at the cartoon. Now, because it's a cartoon, I'm doing a cartoon because cartoons are a little challenging, right? Because it's a cartoon and it's conveying, let's say, this idea that of this obsession of skin bleaching. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's how CXC sees it, but that's how I see it. You can comment that because it's a cartoon. No, sorry. You would, because it is a cartoon, you would comment on the illustration as well as the figures as well as the speech bubble, right? Do all of these things communicate? Do all of these things communicate the concept or the main idea, right? So for me, in this one, the man standing in his boxers on the step outside his house, more or less, even if he's in his backyard, and he's more or less, you can see he's quarreling with the woman who's washing the clothes with the cake soap, right? That's what you use it for. But he's there in his boxers, undressed practically, arguing that she shouldn't be using that for his clothes. But he's undressed. Do you see some of the irony there? There's a bit of irony in there, right? So you can also tell that he seems to be a lot lighter at his face versus the rest of his body. So cake soap is working for him. He's obsessed, right? Cartoon gives you that visual. So if you're doing a cartoon, or I don't know if they'd ever bring pictures, you're going to look at the visual elements of that. Now, if you're looking at the article, I like to do the article because more than likely they bring an article every year. If we're looking at the article, we're going to look at, do we have evidence? Do we have information? Do we have expert opinion? That falls under evidence. Do we have statistics? That falls under evidence, because articles tend to give you information, right? They're expository, they're about giving you information so you can make a decision. So if you have those informative elements, whether if it's testimonies, whether if it's statistical data, historical data, anecdotes, anecdotes are stories, so that can fall under testimonies, then that can help you with your article, right? Something that also helps with articles can be tone, but that's a little extra. I'm just mentioning it if you guys know about it, right? Now, part C. This is where it's going to be a little tricky, and you may have to do some digging on your own because it would be challenging for me to explain all the possible techniques, but I can give you pointers, right? So part C, we're going to take two texts or two source materials, so you can go back to the one you used in part B, or you can do two new ones, and you're going to look at a language technique, specifically a language technique. What is a language technique? Now, language technique, we're looking at metaphors, similes, repetition, diary of a dark-skinned girl. Diary of a dark-skinned girl is an example of repetition. Every single diary entry starts with, I am still a dark skin, right? And at the beginning, it's very depressing. You could tell the tone is depressing. I am a dark-skinned girl. I've been scrubbing my face really hard with soap and water for a while now, but the darkness in my skin won't go away. She's really depressed at the beginning. But when we get to the end, she's not as depressed. It's, I am a dark-skinned girl. It's been 2 years since I've written in you. I've been busy growing up. So I am adding tone to it, but when you read it and you read the contents, you can see it's there. So the repetition serves to, I would say the repetition serves to emphasize the author's skin tone as well as their journey from denying their skin tone to accepting the color of their skin, right? So here's how you do this part. Text, you put the text number. Technique, you put what type of technique. In this case, I said repetition. I'm just going to put repetition. And for effectiveness, what I just said was the effectiveness. The use of repetition at the beginning of every single entry emphasizes the author's journey from depression and disgust about her skin tone to acceptance and self-love. Oh, that was even better, right? That was even better. The more you do this, the better you get at it, right? Writing and speaking and communicating is all about practice. In fact, I am doing these lives because talking is not my main thing. It's not. So this helps me get better. Same thing with writing. The more you write, the better you get at it, right? So what you need to do is go to a textbook and look for literary devices, okay? So like I said, my top ones would be metaphor, simile, personification. So metaphor, simile, personification, alliteration, maybe some irony. Those are the ones you would find in literary texts, right? Or narrative text, meaning text that you're telling a story, you may find it in those. When it comes to an article, what you'd want to use is, I recommend talking about language in terms of the type of words used vocabulary wise. So you call that precise language. In the article, because it's, just about giving information, it's not about being exciting, you may find words that are dictionary words or jargon or specifically mean something. So skin bleaching, all of the words, the majority of the words used are words that give you or communicate the condition, right? It's very precise. I would think for me, even for skin bleaching, I might even go with tone. Tone is also a language technique. It's pretty much more neutral, right? The neutral meaning that when you're doing when you're doing informative pieces or expository pieces or argumentative pieces, you may find that a side is presented, but you as the reader are left to judge. There's no overall emotion from the writer forced at you. When you feel some emotion in this, it's more from reading why someone might, depending on your point of view, why someone might dislike your skin color. or why someone might be willing to run the risk of cancer to bleach their skin. For me, that's weird. For someone out there, that's like, hey, I can risk it, right? So those are some common ones that I think I can give you here. I normally go through this in a class because it's a lot, but that's where I can point you to. So just remember, question 1, it's about purpose. Part B is about what type of format the text is presented in. Poetry versus song lyrics versus an article. Whereas question 1, part C, is about the actual language technique. Simile, metaphor, that sort of thing, right? Then we're going to question 2. Question 2 is what I call presentation. So presentation, they're going to make you think of practical things if you've done an oral presentation. Now, if you've ever had to give a speech, this is going to be good for you. If you've ever been or attended, a speech, even if it's virtual, I think even if it's a virtual like meeting or presentation, this can make sense to you, right? It's very, very practical. You just have to be very good at explaining this. And again, it's not like a full essay, pretty short. So you just have to give short answers for most of these. So part A is you're making a presentation. What are important factors other than composition of an audience? So they want things that you would need to consider, options, elements that you would need to consider for a presentation, except audience. Do not discuss audience at all in this question because there's a question with audience that comes up right after. And I'm being pretty forceful about this because one of my students went into audience here and I couldn't give the marks because this is not the section for audience at all, right? So what are some factors you can use for an oral presentation? Again, very specific. Things like venue, things like the presentation, things like the existence of I just came off Cape Com, so I'm just calling it ICT, but the presence of technology, because you may want to use the internet, do PowerPoints, things like that. Facilities at the venue, that might be a separate point, or you could include it on the venue when you explain. Other considerations might be ticket price. I totally forgot that one when we were talking about it last night. You may have to, that one's kind of a little odd, ticket price, but they want for the actual oral presentation. You may have to think about your tone as well. You may have to think about how quickly you speak, right? These are things that you might have to think about for this particular section when you're making that presentation. How fast you're going to talk. Why is it important not to talk too fast? I talk really fast. I have a hard time trying to slow down. It feels like I'm going like this. But for most people, I speak really, really, really fast, right? You don't want to speak too fast because someone can't hear. So this is what I would say this section is really, really about. But you have to explain it. So when you list it, you still have to actually explain it, right? Then we're going to part B. Part B is really interesting. Part B, so I'm going to take you back to paper 2. So paper 2, you would have done argumentative, and you should have, before you even wrote anything, at least this is how I teach it, before you wrote anything, you should have figured out, hey, I agree with X. These are the 3 reasons why I agree with X. So what you're doing in part B is pretending. So this is part B of question 2. You're pretending you are giving a presentation on any of these subjects, and the 3 points you're going to use to support these topics, this issue, or talk about this issue, just like how you would support a side in argumentative, you're going to take those 3 points and you're going to list them out. Actually, no, let me change that word. You're not going to list them out. You're going to write them out in a nice sentence, right? So you're not going to put health reasons for skin bleaching. that tells me nothing, and you can't get your mark for that. You're going to put something more in the lines of 3 points we discussed. The continued use of skin bleaching products leads to multiple health issues. Ta-da! You see? And that's how it's going to be for that. So make sure you do something like that for your 3 points, right? I was going to flip the screen when I shouldn't, right? Then we're going to get to part C, and this has quite a few elements to it. And then we're going to go to question 3. Question 3 is short and sweet, but interesting, all right? So in part C, you've got 2 parts in. This is the part where you're going to focus on audience, all right? Now, you don't give a presentation and ignore your audience. It's very interesting that this question is last. I've actually told some students to do this question first and then go back to the main points, because you don't come up with an issue and think, who should I talk to about this? Like, you know, skin bleaching. Who's really bothered by skin bleaching? And you've already written your speech, right? If you're going to talk to teenage girls between the ages of 12 to, let's say, 15, you might have a different conversation versus women between the ages of 27 to 30, right? Your points might be a bit different, okay? So I'm giving you a very contrasting example, but I want you to always be mindful of your audience, right? So basically, this is breaking down your audience into 3 factors, all right? With do you have validate? You're just going to identify 3 features, right? So for example, skin bleaching, I might go with primarily with females, right? Because females tend to be concerned about beautification. And then my second feature might be they must be between the ages of, let's say, 16 to 25, very impressionable ages, right? Might have to go younger these days, right? And then my third point, because this particular, and it's so interesting, my student last night, he totally missed this point. This entire topic of skin bleaching can only affect someone whose skin is darker toned. So you're going to literally actually look for, you're going to not look for, let me not say look for. This is supposed to reach persons whose skin are darker toned. Another feature you could have used would have been persons who already use skin soap. That's actually a feature, right? You're not going to go for someone who doesn't use skin soap and loves their dark skin. They don't need that conversation at all. It's the dark skinned persons who hate their skin color and use cake soap or close to using cake soap who you would have to consider, right? I'm now thinking, you know, it could even be persons who are searching, I don't know how you could do that, but searching cake soap on Google. That's fun. Right, so then we're going to techniques to keep your group interested. This one's a little fun. I like this one. So this is things you can do to keep your group engaged. Keep the audience engaged. You can think of things that have happened in meetings you've been to, but again, you've got to be mindful of the audience you've picked. With the audience I've picked, since this is an older audience, let's say even if it's from 15 to 25, I cannot suggest the use of a mascot named Happy Guy, right? Because mascots tend to work better for younger kids, more like under 5, maybe not under 5 all the time, but there's a particular age where kids like mascots, and they will listen to the mascot and be like, I'll not bleach my skin. But this is not an issue for kids. So you want things to keep the group engaged. It could be Q&A sessions, question and answer sessions. I would say testimonials, some persons who've overcome their, let's say, addiction or obsession with cake soap and skin bleaching. Um, you could also use oy, 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 oy. Merchandise. Alright, this is me. You can also give away merchandise or jerseys that say I love my dog skin, right? It's really practical stuff. We have a lot of um, ICT use. ICT means, use of computer and technology. We have a lot of ICT use that's part of um, a lot of presentations right now. So what if you allow the audience to vote on a particular topic or vote on a panel like, yeah, oh my gosh, hey, yellow heart, right? An awesome student, yeah, awesome, right? So this is what you would want to do for techniques, okay? Now, last part, okay? So this has been a very quick, I don't like crash courses, I'm not going to call it that, but it's been a very quick run through, right? Yellow heart, Cassia. It's been a very quick run through of question 1 and question 2, so I hope it helps. Now, question 3 is what I call the personal question. And as a personal question, it's really your personal response, okay? So this is a question where you can write a drama. Drama here means a play, okay? So you can write a drama or a play. You can do poetry. You can write song lyrics. There are diary entries. You can do diary entries. You could probably do a speech because a speech is presented as a text. Or you can write a story. Now, here is my disclaimer for this. If you do not write poetry, please do not go into the people's exam writing poetry. Yes, you've got poetic ambition, poetic expectations. You tell yourself, you know what, I could just do this. How hard is it to write a song or a poem? Not a problem. I'm just saying, if you've never done this before, please don't. I had a student, she would consistently write this exam and consistently do poetry and consistently not pass because she does not do she doesn't write poems. Like, I write poetry and I still think I don't know a lot of writing poetry, so I don't even teach poetry writing. I rather teach short story writing. So for this section, I really recommend story, a short story, very, very short story. You only have 2 pages for this. A short story. I think the speech can work on one of the topics. Oh, did I forget to mention that you're not writing a random speech. You're writing a speech based on one of the topics from this. So you go back to that very first question in question 1, where you look at the main idea of each text, and you're going to pick one of those and write a piece inspired by this, okay? That's where you're getting your inspiration from. I know you may not have been spending your entire life thinking about skin bleaching or the environment or whatever topic comes, whatever theme comes. We don't know what theme will come on your paper. However, you will, when you read the text, you can get some sort of emotional connection, and then you can write it, okay? I had a student, she did the diary entries because we practiced with that, and she used that as her go-to. If you have that 2020 paper, I absolutely think it's a beautiful piece. It's by Stephanie Babatunde, and it's very simple. Diary entries are simple. They're first person. You can take the problem into yourself. So even if we're doing the one with the environment, it can be, June 12th, 2023. I realized that the oceans were dying. Really dramatic. I realized that the oceans were dying, and I could not believe that we were killing God's nature. I must do something to keep the world alive for our people. And next day, July 2026, I went to my village youth group, and we decided we're going to have a seminar on saving the environment. I'm so excited that they decided to join this campaign. August 19th, 2023, we took our campaign to the Ministry of Youth Affairs, and it's now going to be a nationwide. See how simple it is? Like really random stuff, and you're going to be moved by it because it's a diary entry. I am laughing. My daughter is laughing. Cassia is laughing. Okay, that's for Cassia. Say hi. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah. So, listen, it's just pick something that you're going to finish and get out of the exam. And I can't give you further guidance than that because I do believe CXE does not think much of private candidates, unfortunately. I have not even seen a rubric for this. So if you've been on my channel, you see I put rubrics for everything except Spanish. Oh, sorry. I put rubrics up for English and I don't have anything for this. I am honestly making an educated guess for this entire paper. Full disclaimer, educated guess. But so far, the educated guess has been working. So this is why I'm on here and sending this information out. Now, if you've got better information, if anyone here has gotten better information, no problem, let's update it, because I have looked at videos from other teachers on paper 3. I mean different teachers, and it's like, whew, what is this? First time I saw this paper, I don't think I even used my CXE level brain. Quite honestly, I used my university level brain because I was like, what is this paper? This does not look like CXE. This is not CXE. I have shown this paper to literature students. They've said, no, miss, I shall not do that. It's really a different paper. To be honest, this paper looks more on par with CAPE Communication Studies. Pain, Cassia. It's more on par with CAPE Communication Studies, and I'm probably going to use these texts for CAPE Communication Studies when I start classes in September. It's that crazy. So, Cassia said hi, by the way.
I saw it.
Oh, you saw it? Okay. So your hi, Cassia. So that is it for this. I hope this was very, very helpful. And as comprehensive as can be. As I get more information and as I get more papers, it will definitely be a lot more, I'm going to repeat myself, comprehensive. All right, so thank you so much for viewing. As always, this information is sent to you with love and with success. Take care. Bye-bye.